All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Triple Threat Wrestling Radio. It's probably the one show that can kick things off without an intro. To tell you the truth, I really haven't taken the time to work on one, and I'll work on one eventually. It just feels like Ustream is just not that type of program to have an intro. Like I look at a lot of Ustream shows, they don't give you that intro feel. So it is Friday, August 2nd, 2013. Hope everybody is having a good week, having a good day, having a good start to the weekend. I'm going to be completely honest with you, the listeners. I've had quite an up and down week, but mostly up than down. Yesterday was just dreadful. Had a long day, stressing out. But I'm not gonna have a soapbox over it. I'm just gonna chill and just enjoy myself on Friday. Friday has been pretty good. Friday's been pretty good, so I can't complain on that front. Tonight on the show, I have some recapping to get into. Recapping Total Divas, Raw, Main Event, Impact, and SmackDown, which just went off the air here on the East Coast. And Alberto Del Rio now has an opponent for SummerSlam. We're gonna get into all that. Sorry, West Coast listeners. Yeah, I don't. Y'all gonna have to wait for. I'm guessing 1 more hour now. So after this show ends, SmackDown goes on the air on the West Coast. And I also got my interview with Miss Dyslexia. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Um, I got the interview with her tonight. Here's the deal, folks. She was unable to join me for a live interview, hence why I am not online on Skype tonight. Usually, when I do the shows, I use Skype for live interviews, but since I don't have a live interview scheduled tonight, I have Skype off. So it's just me, myself, and this microphone and mixer. Um, that interview will take place at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Central. What we did for this interview, and here's something that I don't usually do when it comes to interviews, is prior to recorded interviews, I tell listeners, anyone out there, send your questions via messages on Facebook, Twitter, emailing, or whatever. Where for this particular interview, we got some questions that were sent via Facebook, and the questions were asked. She answered the question as honest as she can, and it was a very intriguing interview, and you know, she was honest, and there was a part of the interview that got me concerned for her safety and her well-being. Um, I'm not gonna give too much of it away. Just tune in at 10:30 tonight. You're gonna hear the interview in its entirety. Um, but now, oh, and I also gotta get into my thoughts on Randy Orton getting low blowed, not by a wrestler, but by I'm assuming, an intoxicated, idiotic fan out there in Cape Town, South Africa. WWE was doing their shows overseas. Orton just finished a match, and then some fan came from the crowd and hit him with a low blow for no particular reason. Security got to this masked fan before Orton could, and that fan, as of today, pleaded guilty, and he's going to be going behind bars. Let me tell you that right now. So, let me give you my thoughts on Total Divas, which premiered this past Sunday at the E Channel. It gave 1.3 million viewers. It came on, I believe it was, let's see, it was came on after the season premiere of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. As we all know, the minus well stands for K because that's pretty much what you see is Kardashian all the time. Um, my first thought on the season premiere of Total Divas, I didn't have any high expectations or anything like that. Like I said last week, I'm not a closed mind person. I'm open mind. I'm willing to watch the first episode just to see if it's gonna be intriguing. And I will say, as a fan, um, we got a chance to see what goes down behind the scenes. Like we get enough action that on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays and Sundays with the pay per views, but with these reality TV shows, and that's what I look at it as a reality TV show. The camera follows everywhere they go. Opening up a can of worms and their relationships and stuff, and you're not just gonna see them as their characters on the wing. You're gonna see what they really like outside the wing. And let me give you my take on each of the females. I'm gonna start off with JoJo. You see, JoJo's like the reserve. She like the quiet woman, and she's 19 years old. And I wonder if the woman is Samoan or not. That's something I really, from my understanding, she sings, she dances, she's quite a multi-talented person, and she looks like she wants to be a wrestler. So I'm looking forward to seeing more JoJo and what she's got in store. Then you got the troublemaker, I like to call her, Eva Marie. And, there was a scene on the premiere episode when the talent relations people told her to dye her hair blonde. And that pretty much made Natalia, who's a blonde herself, pissed off. I mean, like, hello, I'm blonde. You don't want her to look like a Bella Train, but you want her to look like me. I mean, come on. So when she was at the hair salon, it looked like she was going to go through it. She was going to swallow her pride, and she was just going to go with it. And then when it was time to actually dye the hair, she dyed her hair like completely burgundy red. Or it's not burgundy, it was just Rihanna type of red hair. But I will give Eva Marie props on this. At least she didn't hide, you know. When they told her to have a meeting or whatever, she came in there, and you can tell the talent relations person not that pleased. You know, she was supposed to dye the hair blonde, and she went against that. Now, for a lot, if that happened to a typical person, usually the person gets a warning or gets a fire. If I was that talent relations person, I would have stood my ground. I would have looked at Eva Marie in the eye and say, I specifically told you to dye your hair blonde. Now you don't want to listen? I would have went Donald Trump slash Vince on him. I wouldn't just say you're fired. And you know what? I wish that was Stephanie that told her dye your hair, or Vince that told her dye your hair. I get it. You want to be yourself. You want to, separate yourself from the other females. But you are a newcomer. You are what we call in sports a rookie. You got to pay your dues. Sometimes you got to do things outside your comfort zone. Sometimes you got to do things that you're not going to like. It's kind of like eating vegetables. You got to do it. You got to do it. And if I was that talent relations person, I would have said you're fired. Gone. One episode and done. One episode wonder even Marie would have been called if she would have gotten fired. But that's just how I feel. about Eva Marie. Now we get to the Funkadactyls, the sisters. Um, Naomi and Karen. Okay, you all know Karen from Tough Enough. She's their first impression when you think of her, you think of the woman on Tough Enough, Elimination. Steve Austin asked, "What's your favorite match of all time?" And she said, and I quote, "Melina versus Alicia Fox," and that didn't make Steve Austin very happy. Uh, that did not make her very happy. That did not make Steve Austin happy. So, and Naomi, you know her for NXT. I believe she finished second. AJ finished third, and Caitlyn went on to win. So, Karen is like the spicy, woman. She's like the outgoing, and then you got Naomi, who's like the focused one. She's like, yo, let's go out there and perform. You know what I mean? So, and kind of think about it, you got Naomi in a relationship with the Usos, right? And then I'm like, okay. And to see I think it was Jimmy Uso. She's in a relationship with him. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they get on the same page. And then you got Natalia, the veteran. The Bellas want to call themselves the veterans. She's the true veteran. All right, 13 plus years. Okay, a former Divas champion. And another moment of the Divas episode is when she was informed that she was not going to have a match at WrestleMania. And I appreciate her honesty. Hell, this is WrestleMania. This is something that all the wrestlers in that locker room fights for, is to get a spot at that pay-per-view. And I wonder how many matches she has actually had in her WWE career. She's been there for like 5-6 years, 0 WrestleMania matches, maybe making appearances, but I don't think she had a actual match. So that's crazy. But it shows what she said. Just because she's part of the Hart family, it doesn't mean that you're going to be handed opportunities. You got to work for them. And then she says, hell, I've been out here busting my ass. And then you got the Bella twins coming back, not missing the beat. Then they get a spot, which kind of, I guess that's still like an unsolved mystery, if you will, as to why there was no match. I think that was the first match in WrestleMania history, the first time that there was no female wrestling involved. That's like 28, 29 WrestleManias, 29 WrestleManias. No diva, no diva slash woman matches, I guess you can say. That was crazy. Um, Natalia, it's gonna be interesting, and they're going to show the wedding between her and Tyson Kidd this season. So we'll see how that relationship goes. And then of course you got one Bella dating let's see, Daniel Bryan. The other is dating John Cena. Can you imagine how odd that's gonna be if John Cena and Daniel Bryan end up being brothers-in-law? And the fact that they're facing each other at SummerSlam. I mean, John Cena versus Daniel Bryan, aka the Battle of the Bella Boyfriends. That's something to think about right there. Um, and let's face it, they were having some fun in the expense of Eva Marie and JoJo. This is what happens with, I know people hate when they call themselves veterans, but they kind of are. They've been there for several years. I mean, they had 10, 11-month hiatus, but they're back. They've been around, and this is what happens in other sports. Rookies and veterans, there's going to be some hazing involved. And when you saw that WrestleMania party, when you had that WrestleMania party leading up to WrestleMania, they saw that Eva Marie and JoJo was enjoying themselves, especially Eva Marie with her red hair. They tried to have fun, and I believe Eva Marie referred to one of the Bellas as a word that rhymes with rich. You get the idea on that. So I guess that's my total divas review right there. I was pleased to the honesty and how intense it was. And I guess the reason that there was no match between Tons of Funk and the Funk Conductors versus Rose Scarlett and Bella Twins is because one of the matches took a lot longer and that ended up being cut. So, I mean, things happens. I'm guessing if you're gonna be mad at one match taking too long, it should be Triple H versus Brock Lesnar. I got no problem seeing and Rock going. Well, that was the main event, so they can go as long as they want to. Punk Undertaker, I have no problem it extending. Triple H and Brock Lesnar, I guess, happens. You know, it's WrestleMania for crying out. If this was another pay per view, people would really keep a close eye on the time, on how long they have left to be in the ring and stuff. But WrestleMania, you want to make the most out of that airtime, and you make the most of it. So, hey, it happens. And you know what they say, especially when a team loses a championship, there's always next year. Well, see, I'm not so sure about Natalia, and she'll probably be pissed again if there's ever a season 2. So that was my Total Divas review there. Let's go ahead and recap Monday Night Raw from this past week. From my understanding, the Shield's been getting a lot of flack backstage with Randy Orton, and which I'm not surprised. Dean Ambrose especially. So they kind of not getting a lot of airtime over the last several weeks. I still think that maybe the Shield will be defending the tag team titles, Rollins and Reigns, and not sure if Ambrose will be defending his U.S. title or not, but it's a toss-up with them at this point. They had a lot of momentum over the last several months until their matches with Orton, and Orton behind the scenes can be intense. And then Ambrose, I go back to his feud with Mick Foley from, I think it was last year, and they kind of bump heads. At least that's what reports are saying. But they handled their business, defeating Mark Henry and the Usos. RVD defeats Fandango. Caitlyn with a non-title win over AJ, and AJ does lose her mind as usual. Dolph Ziggler defeated Biggie Langston by disqualification. AJ gets involved, scratched the dude in the eye, and Dolph Ziggler, if you notice, he's been doing his Road Runner impression, and everyone else that tries to chase him is kind of like Rowdy Coyote, and Ziggler is quite the athletic dude. Dude can run, he can jump, he can sprint. Hell, he could have done some Olympics in last year's Olympics if he wanted to. Just his athleticism alone. I'm just putting it out there. Christian defeated Del Rio by pinfall. Christian has been talking about one more match, especially since he came back from injury. Problem with Christian at this state of his career is to stay healthy, but at least he's now getting an opportunity, I suppose, at least after his victory this past Monday. Cody Rhodes defeated Wade Barrett. Daniel Bryan defeated Kane, and then Kane had a reunion with the Wyatt family, the same trio that attacked him a few weeks ago, smashing the stairs on his forehead. That was brutal. And I think it's Bray Wyatt talking about "Come Home, Kane." Clearly they they want Kane to join them. Um, you got Kane calling himself Devil's favorite demon, and then you got some buzzards. I mean, and after bringing the personality out of Daniel Bryan when they formed Team Hell No, I mean they already got personality themselves, but who knows? Kane has all of a sudden maybe being a mentor to some young guys now. Not to say that Daniel Bryan's a young guy. He's been wrestling for long. He's always been a talented wrestler in his own right. I guess the thing with Daniel was the personality and the charisma. He's got that. He's got confidence. And the fact that he doesn't take himself very seriously. So, um, who knows? Maybe Kane, this is their way of saying Kane, maybe he's being a male version of Natalia. Like, you gonna be the mentor to some young guys. Now, Husky Harris was his former name. Now it's Bray Wyatt. And obviously, WWE always know that when some characters don't work out, they change them, and voila. I mean, Skip Sheffield to Ryback, Johnny Curtis to Fandango, and now Husky Harris to Bray Wyatt. I mean, they know when things don't go well the first time, they try something new, and things turn out pretty good. Let's see. Brie Bella goes on to defeat Natalia, and then there's that annoying duck noise. And then you had Axel and R-Truth, which CM Punk gets involved, trying to chase down Paul Heyman, once into Curtis Axel, but he's sending a message like, "Look, once I take care of Lesnar, I'm going after you, man. That's what I'm doing." Um, so that's pretty much your recap there for Monday Night Raw. There you go. Main event recap here. Barrett defeated R-Truth. Usos defeated the Primetime Players. Maybe they find themselves in the tag team title picture. Primetime Players. And then, of course, Mark Henry defeated Drew McIntyre. Also, you have the Impact from yesterday. Bobby Roode defeated Hernandez by pinfall, earning him 7 points. Joseph Parker, defeated Jay Bradley by pinfall. He's no longer negative points. He's now on the scoreboard positively. I guess he's now got let's see. Actually, he's negative 3 points. So he's not quite out of the negative area yet. Chris Sabin went on to challenge the new X Division champion, the wrestler formerly known as Suicide, now known as Manic. And honestly, I would prefer Suicide over Manic. I mean, I don't get the name change whatsoever. I mean, Suicide was, I get it, mid-court guy, but the character, the Suicide name, the entrance, I liked it. And I think they messed it up. They dropped the ball with the name change, but that's how I feel about it. ODB and Gail Kim, that match led into a double countout. Unfinished business with those two, and who knows? Maybe ODB can find herself in the Knockout Championship picture now that she's no longer with Eric Young, and now that the Knockout Tag Team Championship is pretty much gotten rid of. Thank goodness. Then a double. Austin Aries went on to defeat AJ Styles by pinfall, giving him 7 points. And then main event Mafia went at it with Aces and Eights. And then all this talk about August 1st warning. Well, that identity was unveiled by none other than former UFC star Tito Ortiz. Now they have three former UFC, well, actually three UFC, not three, but three MMA fighters in their roster. King Mo, Rampage Jackson, and now Tito Ortiz. TNA obviously sees that these three could potentially be something. You let go of the likes of Joy Wine, Crimson, Christian York, Taylor Hendricks, uh, Tara, Madison Wayne. We talking about actual wrestlers, by the way, and you want to give opportunity to Rampage. You want to give opportunity to King Mo, and you want to give opportunity to Tito Ortiz now. I mean, what's going on, TNA? Is what I want to know. What the heck is going on? Tell you the truth, I have no clue. You know, some I say the only MMA fighter went to wrestling. I say Ken Shamrock from the Attitude Era. Now he didn't have the personality, but I thought he was a hell of a good wrestler, and he was a former Intercontinental Champion. For WCW, they tried Tank Abbott. That didn't quite work out. But unless you have a Ken Shamrock dude coming out that door, okay. And I don't know too much of Shamrock's MMA career, but I do know as a wrestler, he held his own. He was with, I think he was with Nation with Domination and Corporation with Vince. I thought he was solid. You know, he was solid, and he brought, and people want to talk about Kurt Angle and Jack Swagger with the ankle lock. I thought it was Shamrock. I thought he was the first to pour that ankle lock submission. That's just how I feel about that. Um, so I pretty much recapped Total Divas, Raw, main event, and not Bound for Glory, um, Impact Wrestling. So what I'm about to do, ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to get into the recorded interview with Miss Dyslexia. I'm about to get into it right here, right now on the show. And I do want to point out that this is a recorded interview. She was unable to join me for a live interview. So as of last night, we did the interview about 20 some minutes long. And after that interview, I'm going to recap SmackDown. Then we'll end the show that way. So, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you my interview with indie pro wrestler from Texas, go by the name of Miss Dyslexia. And if you message a question a couple of days ago, your questions will be heard right here on this interview. So check it out, enjoy the interview, and I will be right back to give you the SmackDown recap, and then we'll end the show at 11 o'clock. So, again, here's the interview. Enjoy. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, just relaxing on one of my few nights off this month.
Hey, that's good because people working so much and crazy. I mean, it doesn't hurt to have some time off, so it does not hurt. Um,
Yeah.
so a few days ago, you posted on your Facebook on for people to send the questions to you and me on what the questions should be asked, and We're gonna start with those questions first.
Okay.
Here's the first question, and this was sent to you. The question is: do you think being skilled in the ring physically or having well developed character creates a better fan base and being a great wrestler?
Well, having a fan base and being a great wrestler can come from both. You could be a great wrestler in the ring and have great skill, but if you have no personality, nobody's going to want to be around you. They'll think that your work is great, but you'll be boring. Because I know plenty of people that have great skill in the ring, but they can't get their personality through. So it's kind of a mixture of both. You can have a great personality and get over with the fans, but be a terrible wrestler, and you can make something of yourself that way too. I mean, there's quite a few wrestlers that have become very famous, and they have no skills as wrestlers. But then at the same token, if you're a great wrestler and have no personality, it's very rare for you to make it anywhere because you don't have a fan base. Nobody wants to be around the person that's boring.
Do you think?
So
Do you think that the reason that there's a lot of wrestlers, whether it's indie or professional, do you think the reason that maybe they don't have the complete package is it because maybe how they were trained or how the promoters present them, give them suggestions of what they should do as far as their character and so forth?
well, character can come from, with training, but some people just don't have character at all. But in the same token, with training in general, with the wrestling aspect of it, your trainer is a big part of that. They need to teach you, and you kind of need to teach yourself as well by watching wrestling and learning what people like and what the crowd responds to. Kind of like I was talking with Chavo Guerrero this past weekend, and he's like, if the crowd's not into it, he told the whole locker room, if the crowd's not into it, then why are you doing it? You need to change it, because if the crowd's not into it, they're not going to pay attention, and the crowd's the one who's paying to come to the shows, and that's how the promoters are paying you. So it's, yes, in training, there's not a lot of trainers that focus on the personality part and on that part. It does need to be worked on though in training, so that can be part of it. But there's some people that just naturally have it too.
Well said. Here's another question that was sent. This one was sent to me, and I'm just going to say exactly what it says.
Okay.
And the question is, what are your long-term goals in the business, and to what level would you like to take your career? Giggly.
Oh.
Again, I'm just
um,
that's the question. That's
I
exactly.
know who sent that. So, well, long-term goals right now, it's just to, and this might sound bad to some people, but I have a full-time job and I love my job. I'm a nurse outside of wrestling, and I love it. But at the same token, I've been a wrestler longer than I have a nurse. And if I had a chance to work and wrestle for my work, I'm not quite sure what I would do yet. I'm not at that point yet, so I haven't had to go there. But I am wrestling a lot, and I'm getting paid for it, and it is a perspective I need to think about. So I haven't actually sat down and completely thought about that. And if I had a chance to go WWE, I probably would, or TNA. I would probably jump at the chance. It's just that's not there right now. I'm right now enjoying myself traveling and just getting my name out there, because there are people that just stay in the independents, but they travel for it, and they don't go to WWE or TNA, and they're fine with that. And I'm okay with that, but at the same time, if I had that chance, I'm not going to say no.
It's definitely understandable, I mean, just because wrestlers for the indie scene don't make it to the big leagues, it doesn't, take away from what they've done, what they accomplish, how far they have come as far as their first match is concerned. I mean, some wrestlers on the indie scene have shown that they can have a good career and not make it to the big leagues. It's just maybe the opportunity wasn't right or whatever, or maybe it's politics, maybe it's just something
Maybe
else.
they just don't want
Or
to. I
maybe,
mean, look at Casey Carlisle. She's NWA Women's Champion, and she travels constantly. She's not in WWE, she's not in TNA, but I'm pretty sure if you're an independent wrestling fan, you know who she is.
I've had a
And
chance to interview Casey several times, and I jokingly say this. I'm like, you're the busiest female wrestler out there. Because every time I look at her website, she's always on the road somewhere. One week she's in North Carolina, the next year be in Virginia. I mean, yeah, she's definitely a testament of someone that's doing pretty well for herself on the indie scene.
definitely. And I'm kind of working on that. My goal for this year was to wrestle in 3 new states, and next weekend I'm actually going to accomplish that. Colorado was a new place for me to wrestle this year, and I loved it there. I'm trying to make it out there again. And then on the 8th, I'm wrestling in Nebraska, and then on the 9th, I'm wrestling in Iowa. I've never wrestled in those states, and I've met my goal for the year of what I wanted to do personally. And I mean, I hope there's more than just that. So I'm going to push my goal and raise my standards and try for another one. But it's just that you've got to get your name out there to be able to be booked in these other states, and that's my goal for right now, I guess.
That's good, expanding yourself, getting yourself out there. I mean, sometimes wrestlers want to be stuck in the comfort zone. They want to stay in the same city, same company, and not get themselves out there. And then there's people like you and Casey and others that's willing to travel far, that's willing to face new people and introduce themselves to new crowds and stuff, and show them, hey, we need to book this woman more. She wants to make a name for herself in other areas.
Definitely.
So, how did you start becoming a professional wrestler? How did that start off for you?
How did that start? Okay. Well, ever since I can remember, have my earliest memory, I've watched wrestling. I've been around wrestling. I remember being a little girl going to WCW and WWF shows with my dad. I remember watching it weekly on TV, and me and my dad wrestling around on the living room floor, telling my dad, Daddy, I'm going to be a wrestler one day. And so when I was 18, I was actually living in Arkansas, and I went to my first wrestling independent show. And I introduced myself to the people, and I told them I want to be a wrestler. And so this is not too long after I turned 18, and I started training that day. They didn't charge me anything. They just started teaching me. And I will tell you what, that first day sucked. It sucked so bad, but it was one of those things like, this is what I want to do. It hurt. The next day I could not get out of bed. I literally laid in bed all day not being able to move. And then when I was able to get out of bed, I'm like, let's go do it again. And so I trained up there for a little while for a guy that was that had been in wrestling for 25 years. And then I moved back to Texas, and so I'd stopped training for a while, and I got back into training in I think it was end of 2005, early 2006. So the beginning of 2005 is when I originally started training. And then I didn't have my first match until 2006 because I had stopped training for a while.
Well, here's what I want to know. Now that you brought up how you and your dad, like wrestling, attending shows, things like that. What was his reaction when you told him that, hey, I'm going to be a wrestler?
When I actually started training and all that, he didn't believe me until I invited him to a show, and he came and watched me. And he's very supportive of it. My family's very supportive of it. As long as I get, I take care of things in my personal life, my bills are paid. That's also why I can't travel as much as I'd like to, because I have a job besides that. Like I said, I'm a nurse, and I work some weekends. So I would love to travel more, but I have to, take care of my bills because wrestling does give me a little bit of money, but not enough to live off of, unfortunately. But my mom has a store, and when I start selling T-shirts, she wants to sell T-shirts for me. My mom tries to promote me to as many people as she can, and gives out my Facebook all the time, and so yeah.
Who do you consider as influences in your wrestling career? It could be anyone from the indie scene. It could be anyone on the pros. Who do you consider as your influences?
My influences? Well, I guess when growing up, when I was little, I was obsessed and loved Undertaker. I still love him. I think he's great. He gets the crowd into everything he does. I mean, when you see the Undertaker, you know who he is. You know what's gonna happen. You know he has a presence. And I never really looked up to a lot of females until I got a little bit older and had to realize that I needed to watch more female wrestling. But I would say the Undertaker. I always looked up to him independently. Somebody I look up to. Let's see. I look up to anybody that can get places in this business. Like I like a lot of the females here in Texas, like Athena. She's really good. Rachel Summerlin's not wrestling anymore. I got to wrestle with her a lot back in the day. She turned out to be really, really good, and then she's not wrestling anymore now. But a lot of the Shimmer girls, anybody that can get out there and do it and love it, and there's a lot of talented girls in the indies. It's hard to pick one.
Women wrestling nowadays has definitely evolved more than ever outside of the big leagues. It seems like people would rather watch the indie girls more than the pros, because considering there's a lot more ladies, from Shimmer to WSU, and then you got Shine Wrestling, which recently celebrated its 1 year anniversary, and that company continues to grow as it progresses. And you being a female wrestler, you making a name for yourself. How do you feel about women wrestling in general, and how do you feel about the perception, I should say, about women's wrestling?
Well, the perception, I guess it depends on who you ask, because I know like there's a lot of shows that have actual women's wrestling on it, like it's actual wrestling, and it's great. And then there's promotions that want the fluff matches. They just want somebody that's going to come in and look pretty and prance around a little bit. Because there's actually a show that I'm booked for that they were asking me if I know any girls that would do that, because they wanted me to wrestle and they wanted other girls to come in and have secondary matches that pretty much like girls prancing around in bikinis. To people that actually respect wrestling, and that women's wrestling is great and it can be great, but there are people that don't like women's wrestling because they've seen, excuse my language, the crap that's been put out there. And this goes for anybody. This goes for females or males, any wrestling. It's hard to get booked on shows. Like, I don't wrestle very often in Dallas. There's places that I won't wrestle, and not just Dallas, this is everywhere, because there's somebody that they can book for cheaper, but they're not really trained properly, and they're not as entertaining, or that, they're not actually wrestling. They're not working. They're not doing what we were trained to do. But they will get booked over somebody else because they don't expect as much money. But then again, you also get what you pay for. So I think that's where a lot of disrespect comes from women's wrestling, is people are booking people because it's cheaper and not looking at the skill set.
In other words, looks is definitely going to get some people far, and they're going to end up getting exposed, and, it's in the crowd's not going to be into it. and fans not gonna be into it. They're gonna feel like they wasted their money for 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 this, and it's unfortunate. There's a lot of hard fought women out there that's busting their butt, and they get overlooked by some other people, and I think that's very unfortunate because there's a lot of talented females out there, but they just get overlooked, and that's a damn shame. That's a flat out damn shame. Um,
Yeah.
so let me ask you this: what do you like the most of being a wrestler? Is it the fan interaction, competing, hanging with your peers in the locker room, traveling? What do you like the most of being a wrestler?
The most, um, I mean, it's a little bit of everything. I guess fan interaction is probably the best. Like when you go out there, and a lot of it's I'm not a baby face very often, and it's a little strange for me sometimes. But even going out there and getting people riled up any way you can, if you're face or you're heel, getting people riled up and like experienced in the show, like that's the thing that you get from indies that you don't get from WWE. They get to experience you more. You get to interact with them more. That's what's fun. That is amazingly fun. Like I've gotten death threats at shows, um,
Oh my
and
goodness.
it's funny. Because not it's only the one person that kind of freaks out, but everybody else is like, wow, you know how to get people riled up. I'm like, well, yeah, that's my job. But getting people riled up and interacting with people, I think, is the best part of it. I really love traveling too. Unfortunately, lately the whole traveling part hasn't really helped because I get to travel, but I'm only there for such a short amount of time. I don't get to see the places that I'm going, but hopefully that'll change soon. And I'm actually trying to work on something where I take a vacation from work and make it a wrestling vacation. So maybe I'll get to do more of the traveling.
I get what you're coming from as far as interaction. Whatever you got to do to get the fans' reaction, cheers and jeers. But that death threat, I mean, I get it.
Well,
Wrestlers got to have thick skin. But I mean, death threat, that's a certain line that fans cannot cross.
well, you also got to think how serious some of these people are. I mean, I was told to leave early because she did want to try to fight me, but I never cussed at her. I never said anything that was too out of line. Um, it's just she really got into it, and it so happened that I just did my job a little too well, I guess. So and in that type of situation, you just kind of take yourself out of that element. You just kind of go to the other. Like I was just the manager that night. I just went to the other side of the ring and kind of stopped bothering with her. I didn't mess with her anymore the rest of that night. That was enough. I said one thing to her, and that was it. She was done, over with. And but even the other fans, like they added me on Facebook, and they're like, "That was great. We need more people that can do stuff like that here because they want that interaction." Like, yeah, she was a little mad, but I'm probably sure she's over it now. But that's my job is to get people riled up. If I'm a heel, I'm supposed to get them angry at me. They're supposed to hate me. And I mean, I know people that go to Mexico and they legit have real death threats. I mean, sometimes it happens.
I guess so. I mean, regardless of, there's always going to be an idiot that's going to say things that just cross the line. But hey, you handled yourself like a G. So more more props to you. Um, so for people that wants to get in touch with you, social media wise, Facebook or Twitter, why don't you go ahead and promote your links?
Okay, well, my Facebook, all you have to do is look up Miss Dyslexia, all is one word, and the same thing for Twitter. I'm on both all the time, constantly. If I'm not on, it means I'm probably asleep. Even at work. If I'm not busy at work, I'm online. If I don't answer, it just means that I'm a little busy, but add me and I'll eventually get back to you. If you're wanting to book me, just message me on there, on Twitter, whichever. I usually just use Facebook for everything. I used to have an email, but I don't have the password anymore. But it's just Miss Dyslexia, MissDyslexia.
Miss Dyslexia. I got it.
Miss, yes.
So it was great chatting with you. Thank you for joining me for this interview. And everybody keep an eye out on her on the Texas area and the Colorado and Iowa. And go check out her social network links on Facebook and Twitter. She'll keep you posted. Who knows? She may be coming to a city near you. She did say in an interview she wants to get herself out there. And I guess the only way to make that happen is tell your local wrestling promoter to book her. And who knows? She'll come near you, and hopefully no more death threats.
Yeah, no, none of those, please.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you again for being on the show, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. This will conclude the interview. All right, there you have it. My interview with indie pro wrestler Miss Dyslexia, all the way from Texas. Again, I want to thank her for doing the interview with me yesterday evening. Had a good time, and it was crazy about the death threat situation. And look, I'm a fan of wrestling. I've been to shows. It's one thing to jeer the heels and the managers and the referees even get jeers. It's one thing to curse and profane them, but the death threats, I mean, just because you buy your ticket to go watch these shows, it doesn't give you a right to go that far. And you know, she handled herself. She conducted herself. She kept her cool, and the companies that she worked for pretty much made sure things didn't went that far. So um, I mean, I've heard some crazy things about fan interaction with wrestlers. That has to be like top three, top five, as far as interviews is concerned. Um, so check her out on Facebook, Miss Dyslexia. That's MISSDISS. That's one word put together. LEXIA, as in Malcolm X. Um, Facebook and Twitter, Miss This underscore Lexia, and check her out. Check out her matches on YouTube. Keep an eye on her. She's going places. I want to give a shout out to George Alonso and Paris Kelly of Reality Check Radio. I know George is listening right now. Thank you for having me as a special guest co-host on Reality Check Radio this past Tuesday night. And if anyone's been following my internet radio career, that was the first time I special guest co-host a show not named Sports World Radio. It was a 2 hours long, and we interviewed Superkick Frankie Thomas and OVWs and one of my good friends, Michael Hayes. It was a very fun-filled show. A lot of insight, a lot of perspective, and I gotta say, if you haven't heard Michael Hayes' story, I say go back to the podcast. Um, I posted the link on the Triple Threat Western Radio Facebook fan page. So go to that link that is posted. You can also not only you can hear the interview, but you can download. I mean, not only you can hear the whole show in its entirety, but you can download the podcast as well. In previous podcasts of Reality Check Radio, they are on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific over at blogtalkradio.com. So go check them out and tell them that Triple Threat Wrestling Radio sent you. Um, Paris, George, it was hilarious. It was fun, busting each other chops, and I'm just sitting there chilling, laughing my butt off. Um, and I gotta say, Paris, I mean, look how she's involved. You know, I know she's co-hosting the show, but from my understanding, she's being a producer as well. So she's making some big moves, and she just finished off doing the Magnificent Ladies Wrestling tapings this past weekend. So those videos will be posted within the next few weeks at magnificentladieswrestling.com. The next time she'll be at the tapings will be at September. She's not going to be at the August. She's going to be at September. And I can't wait for George and Paris to do the show together, face to face. Well, technically not face to face, but right next to each other. They're going to be doing shows at the TWE, right up there in Mississippi. So you can just check out Reality Check Radio for more details on those shows. I can't wait to hear those shows. The only thing will be very cool is if there is a webcam to see them two do the show next to each other and how they bust each other chops. I think that will be some not only must hear radio but must see radio as well. So again, shout out to George and Paris. Again, thank y'all for having me on Reality Check this past Tuesday night. Let's go ahead and get to the end of the show. I am going to recap SmackDown, and if you're listening on the West Coast, all the West Coast listeners, if you haven't seen SmackDown, I know it's coming up in about 2 minutes for now. I highly suggest you just mute me for the next 2 to 3 minutes. Let's see. Biggie Langston handled his business, went on to defeat Sin Cara. Fandango went on to CM Punk, defeated Fandango. Cody Rhodes defeated Jack Swagger and gets attacked by Damien Sandow. You can expect those two to face each other at SummerSlam. It's just a matter of making the match official. Caitlyn in her hometown of Texas went up against AJ, this time for the Divas Championship. Now, this past Monday, Caitlyn won a non-title match, so she earns her opportunity. And as she was getting interviewed, her good friend Layla, who's a fellow former Divas champion, gave the woman her props. And then came the match. They were outside the ring. Of course, Layla was at ringside. And Caitlyn was going for a spear. And she gets stopped by Layla. And that was the distraction that AJ needed to attack Caitlyn. Went back to the ring. Gave her the Black Widow. And she tapped out. AJ retains the Divas Championship. And Layla left with AJ. Now, remember, because of all that's been going on between AJ and Biggie and Dolph, both Brad Maddox and Vicky Guerrero have agreed not to have Biggie at ringside for AJ matches. So that's why Biggie was not there. And then the main event, what a main event it was. RVD versus Christian versus Orton. The winner faces Del Rio at SummerSlam for the World Heavyweight title. Um, and what a match it was. RVD, I don't know how old the guy is. He's probably late 30s, early 40s. I don't know exactly how old the guy is, but the man looks in good shape. The man's handling his business. Huge props to him on that. Um, and the end of the match was spectacular. Orton with the RKO on RVD. There's a lot of R's, well, two R's. And then he went for the RKO on Christian. Christian countered with a backslide pinfall. Shoulders were down. Christian picks up the victory. And he's now the number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. So he's finally going to get that one more match at the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam. It's a feel-good story. He's back from injuries, and now he's have a chance to be, I believe, a three-time World Heavyweight Champion. So that should be interesting. Of course, some good sportsmanship with Orton and RVD. Alberto Del Rio, not so much. He lacked the sportsmanship part. No, he just lacked the sportsmanship part. Um, there you have it, and that will conclude my SmackDown recap. I will be uploading the Miss Dyslexia interview after the show is off the air, and you can hear it exclusively on the YouTube channel. I really don't get caught up into the full-length shows, but you can listen to the previous shows on the Ustream page. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, I want to thank Miss Dyslexia for doing an interview with me. Next week on the show, recapping the Total Divas Raw, Main Event, Impact, and SmackDown. Plus, I interview indie pro wrestler Casey Ray, who is the girlfriend of Ring of Honor wrestler Matt Taven. So tune in next week, next Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, Ustream.tv. Thank you everyone for listening. You all have a good night. We'll see you next week. Oh, don't forget, check out Chillin' with Jeff Kenny C on Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Again, I'm Kenny C and I'm out. Peace.